rehab, so it's not a huge development project. It's just a one building.
Yes, Mr. Davis?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Davis. You just want to give us a quick overview of your plans for this development on Harrison Street?
Real fast, sorry to interrupt. Garrett, do you have the attachments that show the development site plans?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yes, I'll give you a overview of it. So 115 Harrison Street, my plan is to turn it into ice cream shop / small bakery. You know, it's right there in the heart of the historical triangle. Just basically redevelopment, you know, the area, try to basically bring some people, some livelihood to that area that's kind of dead right now, and try to bring some retail and the ice cream, homemade ice cream. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay. That's it for the proposal. This is for the recommending the council consider adoption of a resolution approving the development agreement and authorize the city manager, city attorney to execute documents to facilitate the sale of city-owned property in accordance with applicable legal requirements.
Yes.
All right, I entertain a motion from council at this time. Councilman Hart. So move. I have a motion from Councilman Hart to approve the agreement. I'll be on a second from Councilman Hill. All right, Madam Clerk. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith. Is she still on the call?
Mute. Yes. Aye.
Councilmember Myers. Did he leave? He's muted. I'll try to come back to him. Councilmember Hart.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Smith Lee. Vice Mayor Smith Lee.
Yeah. She stepped out.
Okay. Mayor Perm.
Aye.
And I'll try back Councilmember Myers. He's still muted. Okay. He's still muted.
Okay. All right. The motion passes.
Yes.
All right. So we'll move on to item 13C. which is an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute the extension of a lease agreement between P&P Associates LLC and the city of Petersburg for the property located at 3811 Corporate Road, Petersburg, Virginia. The purpose is for city council to provide authorization to the city manager to execute the extension of the lease for the property at 3811 Corporate Road for the period June 1st, 2021 to May 31st, 2022. The city has received the extension of lease agreement for the leased property located at Corporate Road, and this ordinance which authorizes the city manager to execute the agreement for the period of June 1st, 2021 to May 31st, 2022. All right, Messinas.
Mr. Mayor, I think that this lease relates to Councilman Cuthbert's request to discuss this matter further at the meeting on the 2nd. This is the lease of the DSS, current DSS space.
This is an extension.
This is, guys, the agreement, the original agreement was a 2-year agreement with 2 1-year options. This represents the first of the 2 1-year options.
Councilman Cuthbert?
So I understand Mr. Williams' good point, and I think I understand Ms. Tias's response. Let me make sure I understand. Ms. Tias, if council adopts this lease extension, will it bind council for more than 12 months?
No. We're exercising, yes, okay.
Thank you.
Councilman Wilson Smith?
So with the budget we just adopted, we went from 384,000 to 387,000, and now we're at 395,000. I don't understand. The lease agreement that we signed with the 2 years and the 2 1-year options, each one of them had a small percentage increase associated with, which is included in the original agreement that we signed. So the difference in between the last year and this year was in the agreement, and the amount for the final 1 year is also in the agreement.
And this would be reflected in the, sorry, this will be reflected in the new budget. And so you'll be, Mr. Floyd has begun budget preparation for next fiscal year. And so the higher amount will be reflected in that next budget also.
So then as long as we're in that building, we can really look at an increase every year. We would,
our leases.
Yeah, all of them do, yeah. Has the buses started going back out there yet? No, not just. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. So they're on a limited route due to COVID. So the building is closed to the public. So the route is limited. You're right, Mr. Mayor. Building is closed to the public, so the social workers or workers are going to the people, or how is it working? It just depends on what program it is. So the
as a point of order, we're talking about the lease agreement right here. We're going to talk about social services and programming. That's a totally separate meeting. Yeah. And can we keep our questions on the lease agreement? I don't want to go too far off the tangent here.
Well, to me, in order to approve a lease agreement, you got to look at what you're using it for. And if social services is basically closed to the public, I don't see what we're using it for, but I certainly understand. That's the end of my remarks.
Okay, so this is the approval of the lease agreement for 1 year. Like I said, this is a partnership with the state in which they are really steering the ship on this. I think at this point in time, not having any other facilities we have to look at the fact if this thing is not approved right, you can end up not having a Petersburg Department of Social Services and shipping everybody to Chesterfield. And that is definitely the reality of what's going on if we refuse to act.
Mayor,
Councilman Hill.
I move that we approve the ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute the extension of lease agreement between P&P Associates LLC and the city of Petersburg for property located at 3811 Fort Brick Road, Petersburg, Virginia.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
may we have some
Councilmember?
discussion?
Yes, we have discussion on the lease.
Mr. Williams, do you have any reservations about this lease?
Yes, sir. I had expressed those previously regarding the use of the property to city council when the original lease was adopted. The state affords money to the city for use for social services specifically. The city has received additional office space that it receives as, I guess, a quid pro quo, they would say, for free. But I think it could put us in a situation where the state may say that we're using their funds outside of what they're given to us for. In fact, I've seen that happen elsewhere. And so this lease gave me some concerns when it was originally adopted. I expressed those at the meeting when the original lease was adopted. It hasn't changed with this lease.
Councilman, I think that when we first did this, the question came up, and we probably need to revisit the separate lease that the city signed on behalf of the city part. So the state has documented that there's no overlap and there's no conflict between the spaces. The spaces are clearly delineated. The state approved the separation of the entrances where there's secure spacing between social services and the administrative offices. And we can check with Ms. Ennis because the city also approved a separate agreement associated with the other space.
Hello.
And the space plans that are included in the agreement for social services do not include the space that the city is occupying. The lease is very clear.
Councilman Cuthbert?
How important is it time-wise that we take action on this lease today? Just as an example, could we table this until our March regular meeting just as well and not be any the worse off?
Councilmember Cuthbert, if I may, we're supposed to do a 90-day notification to the PNP of our intent to renew the lease. This lease will only be for 1 year, and the council could consider, coming back next year and making a different decision, but we're supposed to do this within 90 days of the renewal of the lease. And the lease currently expires on June 1st.
So walk that back with me. We've got June 1st to May 1st to April 1st to
March 1st.
March 1st. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I guess we probably ought to adopt this motion and have our discussion at our work session.
And also, if you don't mind, I'll also get some additional information. The new interim chief has contacted me in regards to social services because he's received some other inquiries, and he has asked me to begin working on looking for options for space for them, as well as look at options at their old building to see what we can possibly do to bring that back up to speed for the social services staff.
Which plant? I'm sorry.
The new interim chief.
Interim city manager.
Yes, ma'am. Interim city manager, yes, ma'am, sorry. He had asked that I look at the Farmer Street location as an option for us to bring back onto the city's role for social services to possibly reoccupy. He did notice that we cannot do that within the next 90 days. So he is aware of it. He have us working on options for social services. And I believe he was gonna bring that back to y'all during the month of March as well.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Ennis. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. If there's no more discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
No.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Hart.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Smith Lee.
Aye.
Mayor Pern.
Aye.
Motion's
Aye.
passed.
Thank members of council for that, because I hate for our residents to have to go to Chesterfield for us not having a facility for them here in Petersburg. So thank you on that. All support.
Thank you.
Next, we move on to item 13D. Is a consideration of a motion to authorize the execution of employment agreement with Kenneth A. Miller to serve as interim city manager.
Mayor,
Councilman Hill.
I move that we authorize the agreement with Kenneth Miller to serve as interim city manager.
Second.
Second, Councilman Myers. Any discussion from members of council? All right. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Hart. Councilmember Hart.
I'm gonna abstain for right now.
Okay. Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Smith Lee.
Aye.
Mayor Pern.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
Next, move on to item 13E, consideration of a resolution to amend Rule 1, Section 1 of the Rules of Council to clarify material permitted for presentation and consideration at council work sessions. At its first annual business meeting in 2021, council adopted amendments to its rules of council. Among those amendments was the incorporation of work sessions as defined in Rule 1, Section 1. It was the intent of council to utilize council work sessions for the primary purpose of receiving information matters of city business, including but not limited to those anticipated for formal action by council at future business meetings. It was the intent of council that the definition of formal action not include ministerial actions such as first readings and requests to schedule public hearings so that such matters may be received at council work sessions for later adoption by council at its business meetings. This amendment to the rules of council clarifies this intent by incorporating the definition of formal action. Mr. Williams? Anything to add?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, and that about sums it up. It simply clarifies what council's original intent was, and that was that you be able to have your first readings and scheduling public hearings, items that are not typically considered formal action of city council, done at your work sessions, so that you can continue the workflow in the same manner that it currently is. Otherwise, you end up delaying items, and they end up getting adopted, substantially later than they ordinarily would. And so that's really all this does. That was council's intent, as I understood it from the beginning. But this just makes it more clear for the future generations who may follow the same practice.
Okay, thank you. All right, entertain a motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Mayor, I had a question.
Yes.
Is it possible with this rule to add on the agenda layout consent agenda, since all of those items actually fall under the consent agenda, so that it's on the actual agenda layout?
You mean put it on the work session agenda, have a consent agenda section?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that council certainly could do that, and it might help because I've been putting them under city attorney report for anything that I've been involved in. That would make it much easier, I think.
Right. Yeah. Because a lot of people, I guess, different departments will probably come under there, and they're going to put it under each one. So that means that you probably would have to do a vote for each public hearing for each department versus just putting it on the consent agenda and just doing it as one vote like we do on the regular meetings.
Okay,
Hold on.
so we amended to add the consent agenda. That's okay, Mr. Williams?
Yes, sir, and I will send a finalized copy if council chooses to adopt it. It's just adding that heading under the section that outlines what the consent agenda looks like.
Okay.
And so moved with the amendment, Mayor Parent.
All right, second. We have a second from Councilman Hill. All right, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Cuthbert,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Councilmember Hart,
Aye.
Councilmember Hill,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Smith Lee,
Aye.
Mayor Pern.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
Next is item 13F, consideration of a process and rules, boards and commissions. Councilman Wilson Smith, will lead this discussion?
Sure. We talked about this at our last council meeting. Ms. Nikesha Jackson and myself have been working on this. We've been trying to fine tune the process so that we can move forward with accepting people on the boards and commission and all be on the same page with doing so. If you can recall at the last meeting, we gave you all a list of boards and commissions as we knew it. And Mr. Palm was gracious enough to add some that we had left off. We have divided that list into two separate groups. One group is what we call Group A. That's the group where council determines who will, from the citizenry, who will be on each board or commission. And Group B is not really left up to citizens. For instance, the mayor serves on certain boards, and that's automatic. So we divided it up accordingly. There are some groups that we had in yellow where these groups are currently not meeting. The CCRA is on the books, but they're not meeting. Youth Services Citizen Board, not meeting. These are things that council will have to vote on. What Ms. Jackson and I did was, and what we are submitting to you is the process that we would like to go by and the rules. And then we will still have to vote on the appropriate items for the appropriate number of boards and commissions. We also have decided that we're going to make a booklet for all of council members, which will include the rules and regulations. It will have every board listed within the booklet and at the copies of the applications for every board so that you will always have it at your fingertips. And each time someone puts in a new application, you will get a copy of it. So for today, if we could at least agree on the process and the rules, and we ask that you please let us know how you feel about the groups that are in yellow, whether or not we're going to reinstate those or not. And you can let us know that at the next meeting, whether or not you want them or any other group reinstated. So the question is, can we agree, first of all, on the rules, the regulations, and the process for the governing of our boards and commissions?
Yes. Councilman Hill?
As our city attorney looked this over just for verification, make sure we're in line.
I have no problem with that.
I mean, I'm not trying to stall it, but I just want to know, has he looked it over? Mr. Williams, have you had an opportunity to look this over?
Hold on. I'm sorry, I missed that, Councilman Hill. Can you repeat, please?
Have you had an opportunity to look over the process and rules of our board?
Yeah, I've not actually been involved in this process. They did contact me, and I provided them with the PowerPoint that I did previously, but I haven't really been involved in what they've put together, what you have in front of you. So this is the first I've seen it as well in the agenda.
Okay. I just wanted to know. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Cuthbert?
I'm choking on the process. I look at this second bullet point, interviews are conducted during the month of May. I just added up, and my math may be off by a couple, but for this group A on page 326 and 327, I get a total of 45 appointees. I'm not real enthusiastic about conducting 45 interviews and that's just people we appoint. If there are multiple applicants, it could be, if there are 2 applicants for each position, there could be 90 interviews. I mean, this is not realistic. I can't support that. And I also question what's the advantage of I don't understand the year shall be identified as July 1 to June 30. I mean, we've got 4-year appointments that are expiring all throughout the calendar for some boards and commissions. I mean, I understand July 1 to June 30 is fiscal year, but I don't know why that should be the term of appointment for anybody on any of these boards and commissions. This looks to me like if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and yet we're determined to fix it. So I don't think the process that's proposed is a good one, or one I can endorse, accept, support. I think this is just overly bureaucratic. So I know I'm not in a position to support what's before us today for those reasons.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Councilman Myers?
Yes. I'm trying to, maybe I need Mr. Cuthbert to explain to me where is he getting these 45 individuals from.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll be glad to. Maybe
because I don't have a hard copy, so I'm relying on what I see on the screen. So I apologize.
No, well, there's a table there. There it is. Whoa. So, all right, that's the A group that you see on the table on the screen.
Yeah.
And so on page, you can't see it because the numbers are so small. At least they are on my screen. But the committee number 1 has got 7 members to it. And then you go to the next screen, committee number 2 has got 9 people on it. That's the CDBG group. Committee number 3 has got 7 members on it. Committee number 4, the Social Services Advisory Board's got 4. Committee number 5, Planning Commission, has got 9. Committee number 6 has got Anti-Poverty, has got 7. And then committee number 7's got Create a District Area Agency on Aging. That's 1 more. I've lost my ability to do 5th grade math, but I think that's 45 or pretty close to it. And as I say, if there's more than 1 applicant for an open position, then who knows how many interviews we would be conducting during the month of May. But I don't think that's a good use of council's time.
Well, Mr. Cuthbert, I think probably, and I'm not the way that we've done in the past, that these interviews were staggered, but you're not going to interview each organization or board and commission at the same time. I'm going to assume I guess a member is needed to sit on that board. Although it looks cumbersome now, I think that when folks expire or come to expiration on their board, then we would look at what we have to do to replace the individual at that time. But I understand what you're saying, but it appears that we would be doing it all at once, but I don't think we would be doing it all at once. And there's some period of time in which we might conduct 4 or 5 interviews at a time, but I don't think it's going to be to the greater number that you're talking about. Although at some point when we start to replace everybody, it would meet that obligation of 45 in which you might have calculated. So that's all I was trying to figure out where you come up with the 45, but now I understand. But I don't think it's going to be such a strenuous task on council, because we're not going to be interviewing all these folks at one time. So that's all the clarity I wanted from you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
If I may chime in.
Yes, Ms. Jackson.
Okay, so with this process, just like she said, it's grouped off into 2 groups, Group A and Group B. Group A is the boards that city council members have access to in order to, make stipulations or rules for that board, in which with the process, if you guys would like to change it, you can change the month. You can actually maybe require that these boards be interviewed instead of just appointing people based off of their application and resume or attachments that they attach to it. But it's just a layout that you guys can change, and we can get input from city council, because these are the boards that are actually run under city council in the city. So if you guys are not in agreement with the layout, I would, if possible, like recommendations or just some information from council saying, hey, we want to do interviews for the boards that are run by the city, like EDA. If you want to do certain times that you want to do interviews for applications, instead of just doing an interview every time we get 2 applications in this week or this month, and just do it maybe every 2 months, depending on when those boards have expiration dates. Just some input from council is basically where we're at a stand right now. That's all I have, Mayor.
I mean, I don't have any problem with anything, but my only issue is that maybe we probably would address this at the next item. I don't want to go too far, but it does deal with this, is when we have individuals on our boards and it's too many from one particular ward when it's supposed to be citywide driven. So that's one of the things that I've seen, especially with our EDA board. We have, this is no kick to that ward. We have I think 6 people from one ward, from Ward 3, the mayor's ward. And, we got 6 people from one ward for our economic development, and the other one is from my ward. So you got 6 from Ward 3, and you have 1 from Ward 2. So the other wards are not evenly represented. So we just need to be better about when we look at these applicants. And the city clerk, she does a good job of putting the information in front of us. But I believe even for my representative for that particular board, I think Mr. Brewer, I don't even think he has his board name decided, but normally it's who of the ward you belong to. So we need to find a balance of our ward system where it's spread it all throughout. And of course, we want qualified individuals. I'm not saying that the people on the board is not qualified, because we have some sharp people on the board. But the problem is they're not represented of the city in its totality. So that's my concern when it comes to boards and what have you. I have no problem with any of the procedures thus far. I do understand what Councilman Cutler said, but even talking through it, and we used to interview at one time, and what have you, just haven't done it in a long time. We've just been going on the applicants and what have you. So the city
Yes, Councilwoman Smith would like to
thank you. I want us to remember that when we had the retreat at Virginia State University, we made a decision then to stop interviewing people, although we didn't take a vote or anything. That was our discussion. We weren't going to do any more interviews. Then a couple of times at council meetings, we've asked the question, are we going to interview? So that shows that there are no rules and regulations for us to follow. Then we had a person to apply for the planning position from Ward 1, to which there is no one from Ward 1 on that position. And we didn't choose her for no particular reason. We didn't choose her. Mr. Cuthbert said he didn't know her. And because he didn't know her, we all went with him and didn't choose her. So then you have people who put in applications this summer for CGBD and nothing's happened. We didn't choose, I think we chose 2 people for CGBD. We had several applications, qualified people. We didn't choose anybody. It is unfortunate, but it is something that keeps us grounded. We need to have rules and regulations in place so that when we do make decisions, they are based on the rules and regulations and not based on our emotions or who we know. Whenever there are rules and regulations in place, you're covered. You're covering yourself. And you don't run into the ill-fated process of choosing based on your ward or choosing based on who you know or who your friends are. So what Ms. Jackson and I have been trying to do is to come up with some rules and regulations that we can all agree on. And if we don't want to take this set, that's fine. We understand that. But please tell us something. We waited since the last council meeting for someone to say something to us, and we heard from no one. So now we're going to ask you again, if it's all right with Ms. Jackson, if you would please read this. If you want to go into this document and edit it and give it to us, that's fine too. But we want to do this in a manner that everyone can be satisfied with, as long as the outcome is that we have some rules and regulations that we as a council and future council members can follow in developing our boards and commissions.
Okay, Councilor Wilson-Smith, can you also talk about what the second phase of Councilman Hill's question was about the EDA? I know he just said that I had a lot of people from Ward 3 and is it things like that you're looking at more specific? Can you talk about that?
Actually, he hit the nail on the head. To have everybody from one particular part of town, and I'm sure there are some more qualified people, and I don't know how the list got like that, but it would eliminate us having that sort of a problem, because without rules or regulations, it can appear, and keep in mind, I'm saying it can appear that the board is stacked with your people. It can appear that way. And you don't want that. Nobody wants
stack the board. Is that what you're saying?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Councilman.
Mr. Mayor, some of our boards and commissions don't require ward specific, are not ward specific. But I think they've laid out a framework for us to consider that. I'm going to assume, am I correct, Councilwoman Wilson-Smith?
Yes.
And so even though the EDA, that may not even be a ward specific board. And I'm not sure at this point, but we do have some that are not ward specific. So I would like, as you all say, I'd like to read over this again. I'd like to have a chance to read it. And if you don't mind, Councilwoman Wilson-Smith, that we review it again at our next council meeting, and I will help and chime in with you I know I didn't respond, and I apologize. I've been really busy. And so let's look at this. And if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, if we can move this to the next council meeting to review again and have a little more specifics, if you'd like.
Okay. And I also heard the recommendation for Mr. Williams to review it as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that all right with you, Ms. Jackson?
Yes, ma'am. If anybody has any comments or any suggestions, if possible, can you email them to me? And like she said, you can change the layout of it and make your suggestions on the copy that was sent out to council, and just any kind of advice, any changes would help.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, all right. So we'll table this item until the next meeting in March, and everyone can please chime in with their recommendations. So hold on to this document.
I would also, can I add one more thing, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind?
Yes, Councilman Myers.
Okay, yeah, one more thing. That even though all of it is ward, if it becomes ward specific, you may lose out on experienced individuals that you would need to serve on that board, because you may not have individuals that carry the weight of the experience that might be necessary for that particular board. So I don't think that we should take it to heart to be specifically ward specific, but we should be flexible in our acceptance of an application. That's my suggestion. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Councilman Hill.
So one final thing. So being that we do have in item 13G with another appointment, would it be the council will for us to, and I don't know the individual, and I'm not saying this, would be our will for us to kind of table this until we get our ducks in a row before we bring anybody else on any particular boards, until let us get our processes, procedures in order.
I don't believe, I'm sorry, Mr.
Whether we want to do it or not, because this individual, and we don't know, I mean, he's from Ward 3 as well. So I can't vote for that solely due to the fact, and I don't know individual, he could be a CEO or something, but I'm just saying, I just want to have diversity amongst our citizens and all our boards. That's going to be one of the things that I'm fighting for. And I understand what you're saying, Councilman Myers, due to the fact that, you know, I think we got cream of the crop over all our city. But with that being said, I think we may have to take a different way of advertising, you know, whatever that looks like and what have you. Because it seems like some are in the know and some aren't for whatever reason. So my recommendation is going to be to table this when we get to this item.
Can I
13G.
13G. Well, what is 13G an appointment?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Then, but I still don't understand how that has anything to do with these new rules that are going to take place. Because you have. Hello.
If I can respond to you, Councilman Myers, what I'm saying is, can we get our house in order before we? Because
your house is not out of order. This is just an initiative that Councilwoman Wilson Smith is presenting to the city council. Your house is not out of order. And as I don't discount yourself. Your house is not out of order. This is an initiative that is being brought to us for consideration by Councilwoman Wilson Smith. So if someone has applied for a position on one of our boards and commissions, I don't see how us delaying this particular task has anything to do with an appointment to someone else. And as I have said before, a lot of our boards are not ward driven or specific. But you all can choose as you may, but don't discount yourself and say that your house is out of order when it is not.
Well, maybe that was a bad choice of words, but I'm just saying, if it's, and we don't know if the EDA is board specific or not. So we we can't answer that right now.
Ms. Jackson can answer that question for you, sir. But I will follow suit with you, Mr. Hill. But I just don't want you to discount yourself. That's all. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
May I say something?
All right, Ms. Jackson.
Okay, so for the EDA, that's the next item on the agenda. If you do or don't approve this process, it doesn't really hurt to appoint that person. The process here only states when you guys will be doing interviews, accepting applications, whether or not that person can serve on the boards at more than 2 boards. So the process and the rules really wouldn't hurt if you did do an appointment to that board. And then also I understand what Councilmember Hill is saying as far as having 3 or 4 people from one certain board. The information is put out there on the website. It's put out there on social media. It's ran in the newspapers. So people know when the boards are open or have an open seat. The thing is, when people apply to these boards, it's only a certain amount of people in a certain amount of wards that apply. So I guess the biggest issue is to try to get the council members to go out in each ward to get those people in their area to apply. Because yeah, there are, say for instance, with the Economic Development Board, there are 4 people from Ward 3 on that board, and it's only 2 from Ward 2. But I guess the biggest issue is actually getting people from Ward 1, 7, 5, 4 to try to apply to these different boards that are run under the city.
But Mr. Mayor, may I please?
Yes, that's right.
And they're not water. Most of the boards are not water appointed, so it doesn't really matter.
Right, but right, and but what you and Councilwoman Smith have put together is that you're asking folks for resumes and their experience, and if the experience does not underlie what it is that you're trying to appoint someone to carry out the mission for that particular board, that individual may not be in that particular ward. So that's what I was saying, is that you may have to cross the line sometime, and there may be 2 from Ward 4 or Ward 3 or however it's situated, but it's something we would just have to face when that time comes. But I would just say let's not put ourselves in a box.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Hill?
Yes, and we're not gonna, I guess so I'm looking at this right now, and our Ward 3 has 5, and Ward 2 has 1. Mr. Jefferson does not live in, Lafayette Jefferson does not live in Ward 2, he lives in Ward 3, but on here it has he lives in Ward 2. So,
those changes were actually sent out in an email to everyone on yesterday with those changes, okay. With Ward 2 being beside Mr. Rue, and then the Ward 2 changed to Ward 3.
Okay, that's fine. And so part of my packet that I'm gonna respond to you all in this procedures is that certain boards be boards be ward driven, and that's one of the things I would like to add to it, so we can have more coverage. And if we get to that point where we're not getting enough applicants from all across the city, then we can just go back to not more specific. Certain boards should have more diversification throughout the city, and that's one of the things that I'm fighting for.
And that's one of the things we'll probably have to get with the director to find out, to make sure that their rules and regulations don't conflict with this process either, if you want them to be ward related from each ward.
Okay,
no problem. All right, and I believe this leads to item 13G. That's where we are now. And Councilmember, Diana.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I heard a motion by Councilman Hill that we table the 13G item. I would suggest we table it until our March regular meeting, and I second that motion.
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith. Aye. Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Hart.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Smith Lee. Did she say aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Perm.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to our next item. which is city manager's agenda. Mr. Mayor, I know that the city manager is out. We are, okay. She's working. Okay. All right, Ms. Benavides, with the city manager's agenda.
Yes, Mayor, Council. One of the things Ms. Wilson Smith has asked for a couple of times was an update on the CARES and all funding. Mr. Floyd did have this presentation and sent it to me. If I haven't sent it to you, I will send it to you. I will send it to you today. And from a discussion standpoint, we can have Mr. Floyd to go through and give you an update on that at your next work session. The last item is Delegate Eric has been working for a couple of weeks now on a major event for us in the city, a mass vaccination. It will on Friday at Petersburg High School. 2,000 seniors in the Tri-City will receive their COVID vaccination. This has been a joint effort between the health department and the state. We have hoped to have done this earlier. Unfortunately, the weather has not been our friend, but I do want to thank Delegate Eric for her assistance in getting these vaccines to the city of Petersburg. Now, as for residents, as many people will say, well, who's going to get it? They have already made the call. If you were on the waiting list, you will have received a call. Now, this is in addition to what is going to the health department. So this is a special event that will happen on Friday. What will continue to happen is vaccinations will continue to come in with the health department, and they will look to do additional events so that we can continue to vaccinate our seniors. But I believe that from an opportunity standpoint, our team has been working very closely with the delegate. We may be looking for a couple of volunteers here and there to help with this process, but they will let us know what they need. But I want to thank Dr. Agula. He actually met with us and was just interested in helping us to catch up. And all I can do is say thank you. Ms. Tice, do you have anything else on the vaccinations to add?
I do.
Good.
And I hope you can hear me because I'm not seeing myself either. I do. Please, when the manager talks about what they need, they have now communicated with me what they need. I need 40 volunteers for to help with registration. The state has moved to its new registration center system. It is electronic, and I need, they have asked us to provide a registrar for each vaccinator. We're gonna host 40 vaccinators on Friday. Please, please, please email me. I'm pinning a email now to our internal team. But for those of you who are on the phone, my email address is dtias at y'all know my va.org. Please email me if you are available on Friday. There are 2 shifts. One, we're asking you to be there at 7:45 so that we can get you trained on the system from 7:45 to noon. And then we're looking for another shift to start from 11:30 to 5. Guys, this is the opportunity to be a part of figuring out how to pull off a major vaccination event. And the state is looking to make this a protocol for how you do it. We intend to, the strategy is to do all 2,000 of those vaccinations on Friday. If we can do this, then now we have a model for doing mass vaccinations in Petersburg going forward. So please send me a note to my email address. Those of you internally, look for an email from me requesting your assistance within the next 10 minutes.
And I can tell you that this is you've seen the big events happening up in Richmond. 2,000 vaccines is large. Of that, at least 600 Petersburg residents will get vaccinated this week. And that is not including those school teachers and other activities that were going on. So I know that we are concerned about the speed in which some of this is happening, but for us, this is a big deal. It is an effort that I think that we can prove to be very successful, and as we start to move forward, you're going to see more of those activities. I want to thank Ms. Tyus, Mr. Lyons, the entire team. Sheriff Crawford has been talking with us along the way with this process. Chief Travis, Chief Lebo, they've all been helping in this effort. And so I just can't say to you all and the residents how much we appreciate the state saying we deserve and we need to make sure we're focusing on the Tri-City region. So that's that portion. You're going to get the update on CARES funding, which I will mention to you has been extended. The last thing is we talked about this weekend and how remarkable this weekend was with staff coming together. I can tell you there was no better opportunity to see what happens in a crisis than to see our folks coming. I'll give an example of, for example, we knew we needed generators, backup generators, and there were none in Petersburg. Chief Lebo, our new fire chief, our interim fire chief, said there are some in Hampton, and guess what? He jumped in a truck, picked them up in Hampton Roads, and drove up here. So with 19 large generators, I believe, Mr. Colton, his team, a lot of folks think about the folks who shovel the snow, but remember, there is a command center. Not only folks who were cleaning up, who were making sure that if anybody needed to get from point to A, point to B, Mr. Coombs and his team were here. They were making things happen. Ms. Tyus and Mr. Richard, she led these calls and kept it going and kept us going, and I appreciate it. Mr. Lyons, Ms. Ennis, and Mr. Burnell, you don't hear about them. That's a good thing. Look at what happened in Hopewell. They made sure between those backup generators that our water systems kept pumping, and we did not have any knock on wood boil notices. But these are the folks who kept things going. Kimmy with communications, I cannot say enough about how she has managed and kept managing, and most folks did not sleep during this time because this was an ongoing event. And so I say all of this under my agenda because I also have to do a special thanks to our interim city manager, Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller came in Thursday and I said, look, we need your help. We need you to get on this. And he was on the calls, he was helping. And the next thing that he is going to lead is that after action report, because there's some lessons to be learned. There's some more things that we have to do. And there's some exercises. One of the big recommendations I have going away is we talked about it, but now is the time to do an emergency management exercise. Talk about how that communication center works from a community affairs to the EOC with the emergency operations and my police and fire guys. They were quite funny and exciting to be around together with Chief Travis and Chief Reed. And I found that everybody was a chief there but me. And so I can honestly tell you, thanks for calling me Big Chief, but it is what made this weekend work. And we're ready for Thursday. The one thing I can tell you from this weekend is we are ready. Despite the cold, we're ready. And so I just can't say enough to you guys that, you know, we talk about the dream team. The dream team had part A, part B. We all know that first dream team, but there were some others. And the continuation will happen. Do not doubt City of Petersburg because resilience is one thing, but we are powerful, powerful, powerful place. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next. That's it. Okay. All right. Next, move on to item 18. This is a request from the clerk, Ms. Jackson.
I have an item.
The next, move on business of reports from the city attorney, Mr. Williams. I think you did have one item of a closed session, right?
Well, actually, I was going to mention the addition of the council's ratification of the declaration of a local emergency. As council may recall, on the 12th, the city manager made a local declaration of emergency with regard to the winter storm that was occurring. And the code section under which that is adopted, it's 44-146.21, requires that at the time of declaration, the emergency manager have consent of the governing body. But if she's unable to get it at that time, then it authorizes subsequent consent by ratification by the governing body. But that consent has to occur either at the next business meeting or at a special meeting within 45 days of the declaration, whichever occurs first, according to the statute. We're in an unusual situation here because our regular meetings are special meetings because of the COVID pandemic. But that being said, my recommendation, since we are convening, and I think the legislative intent is to have this ratified as soon as the governing body meets following the declaration, I would recommend that you add this to your agenda today. Suspend your local rules of council, add this to the agenda today, and adopt it. And I know Councilman Cuthbert, you may have the question regarding adding an item to special meeting. I think if you've got unanimous consent of all members of council, you'll satisfy the statute anyway. But even if you didn't have all members present in this particular case, I think the requirements of 44-146.21 would trump the procedural concerns as well. So that's my recommendation. I think I've emailed the mayor the language if council chooses to add that. Mayor, if you have that available. If not, I can read it.
All right, this is the declaration for local emergency.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And while you guys are looking it up, the most important part about this declaration, because the governor has declared a state of an emergency, this allows for us for any non-traditional expenditures associated with it to be eligible constantly for funding to support the efforts for this emergency.
Okay. So first of all, we need a motion to add.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we need a motion to suspend the rules first. To add. Suspend the rules to add.
Second.
Okay. All right, we have a second. Councilman Myers, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Hart.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Smith Lee.
Aye.
Mayor Pern.
Aye.
Motion is passed.
All right, next we need a motion to adopt the declaration of local emergency. So move, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Mayor, if I could interject, just first you need to add it to the agenda, then adopt it. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we add the declaration of local emergency to our agenda.
Right.
Second.
Second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Hart.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Smith Lee.
Aye.
Mayor Pern.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
All right, next we need a motion to approve the emergency declaration.
So moved. Second.
Adopt the agenda. I mean, adopt the resolution, sorry.
Please.
The resolution of the declaration of local emergency.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Hart.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Smith Lee.
Aye.
Mayor Pern.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
And then the only other thing that I have, the mayor wanted to see if council would be willing to add a closed session to the agenda today for the purpose of discussing a contract for a service provider to provide media and other services to city council. And so I've prepared that motion if council is inclined under its currently suspended rules to add that item as well.
So moved. We go into closed session.
We have a second from Councilman Hart. That is to add a closed session to the agenda. All right. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Hart.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Smith Lee.
Aye.
Mayor Pern.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
All right, next up, we're at the motion to add to the agenda. Next, I'll entertain a motion to convene a closed session pursuant to 2.2-3711A 29 of the Code of Virginia for the purpose of discussion pertaining to the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offers and discussion of terms or scope of such contract or discussion in the open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically discussion of a contract with a service provider to provide media and other services to the city council.
So moved.
All right, second. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Hart.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Smith Lee.
Aye.
Mayor Pern.
Aye.
Motion's passed to go into closed session.
All right, we're now in closed session. And Garrett, I am not on host of the meeting, so I need you to stay in to get everybody into the waiting room.
Yeah, I can do that. I was wondering though, is anybody there hosting? Is Mr. Williams gonna stay in?
Yes, Mr. Williams can stay in, and also I think Ms. Angela Enos can stay in as well, and yourself.
Well, in that case, I can stay in as host if it's not that big.
Yes.
Okay. Give me 1 second to kick him out or put him in the waiting room.
Sir.
So, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all right, Mr. Williams.
Yes, sir. Give me 1 second, please. The mayor would entertain a motion pursuant to 2.23712 of the Code of Virginia that only those business matters identified in the motion for which the closed session was called were discussed during the closed session. If any member believes that there was a departure from the foregoing, he shall so state for the record, identifying the substance of the departure which he believes has occurred. This requires a roll call vote, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
So moved.
Second. Motion to second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cuthbert,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Councilmember Hart.
Step down.
Okay. Councilmember Hill,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Smithley,
Aye.
Mayor Pern.
Aye.
We're now in open session.
And open session, then we're back at item 19 with the city attorney, Mr. Williams. That's all the items, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so next we will go to item number 20, adjournment. So move, thank you all. This meeting's adjourned.
All right.
Thank God.